Hey BookTube, it's time to wrap up a very romantic September.
I got my ticket for the long way round.
It was a very romantic September, but I read a couple of contemporary books too, and so I'm going to start with this one. This is Trouble by Gary D. Schmidt. This is I don't know if it's middle grade or YA, but it's appropriate for either age group. And Gary D. Schmidt is an award-winning author. This is an amazing look at injustice and racism in New England. And it centers around Henry, who is in high school. He and his older brother Franklin and his younger sister go to a prep school. And also at this school is Shay. And Shay is from a Cambodian family who has moved into this community. Now this community is made up of people whose ancestors kind of came over on the Mayflower. I mean, these people have been here forever. So Shay, unfortunately, is driving one night and hits Henry's older brother Franklin and injures him very seriously. And so then there's a trial and we go through everything associated with that. But primarily we look at Henry's journey to deal with that situation and find out who he is and what he feels and kind of work through the whole injustice of the whole thing. And it's a great story. It's really a great story, and it could have been a very dark story with a very serious tone, but Schmidt is able to just give it just little points of levity in the way that he writes that I just found amazing. I thought, this is some kind of a book. Wow. So I want to read you just a little example of that. Henry has a good friend named Sanborn. And Henry and Franklin were initially going to go climb Mount Katahdin and for the summer. And now Franklin, of course, is, grievously injured and in the hospital from this auto accident. And Henry decides, I'm going to go ahead and go climb the mountain anyway. So he sets off and his best friend Sanborn won't let him go alone. And then they meet Shay, who is essentially running away from his own family and set of problems. And so they're driving along. And this happens. And right by the road stood a white clapboard diner with a small sign hanging on its outside, Mike's Eats, which was good enough for Sanborn, who suggested that if they didn't turn in for breakfast, he might die, which would be homicide by refusal to allow breakfast, and they'd have a whole lot of trouble hiding the body. That ability to just give a lightness to the story was amazing, and Sanborn was the character that really did that. So I gave this 5 stars. I think it's amazing, amazing writing, and probably should be read by every high schooler in the nation. It's just such a good commentary on racism and the way that Americans who have been here a long time deal with, new people coming into a community who are not like them. 5 stars. Then I picked up The Boy Most Likely To by Huntley Fitzpatrick. And this was narrated on audio by MacLeod Andrews and Jorjeana Marie. The Boy Most Likely To is a companion novel to My Life Next Door by Huntley Fitzpatrick. And this is a great story. The Boy Most Likely To involves the same family of the boy in this story. The boy in The Boy Most Likely To is a guy who is kind of friends with and then develops a romantic relationship with one of the sisters in the previous book. The guy, he's an alcoholic and he's dealing with his demons, and he's made a lot of mistakes. He's from a very wealthy family, and he's just working through all of the mess that he's made of his life. It's a very positive book. It's a very sweet romance, and I loved it. I liked My Life Next Door a lot, but I think I like this one even better, and so I gave it 4 stars. And then I went to Lucky Harbor. Lucky Harbor, Washington is a little town created by Jill Shalvis for the Lucky Harbor series. This town is Stars Hollow. It's the Gilmore Girls. It's wonderful. You have this cast of characters that keeps changing, but there are some characters that stay, the same book to book. These books were narrated on audio by several different narrators. For some I listened, for others I read as ebooks. Probably the bulk of them I read as ebooks. My favorite narrator was Suehyla Attar, and she narrated books 3, 4, and 10 I think 9 and 10. Just an amazing narrator. She was able to give just the perfect voice, especially in book 10, to the male protagonist. His name is Sam, and he was just wonderful. She just captured him so well. This, like I say, is like multiple episodes of the Gilmore Girls. It's wonderful. You have Lucille, who is one of the staples. She's an older lady, like in her 80s, always with a neon tracksuit and bright lipstick, and always matchmaking and meddling and getting in the middle of everything and taking pictures of all the hot guys and putting them on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. And anyway, she is hilarious. And she's a thread that goes, she's in every book. So there are also a couple of other characters that are in every book, but these books, it's 12 books, and it goes in kind of sets of 3. You always have 3 women who are friends. So these are delightful stories. I read books 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And they are Head Over Heels, book 3, and that is the story of Chloe, who is the youngest sister who owns the B&B, and Sawyer, who is the sheriff. Lucky in Love is book 4, and that's the story of Mallory, who is a nurse at the hospital, and Ty, who is an ex-ranger with some degree of PTSD. Book 5 is At Last. That is the story of Amy, who is a waitress at the diner, and Matt, who is a forest ranger. Forever and a Day is book 6, and that's the story of Grace and Josh. Grace is a high-powered CPA who has run away from her life and now living in Lucky Harbor, and Josh is the local MD at the hospital. Works in the emergency room primarily. Book 7 is It Had to Be You, and that is the story of Allie and Luke. Luke he's a guy who has come home again to a house left to him by his grandmother, and then Allie is a girl who was involved in a relationship with the mayor, which broke up because he's a total jerk. Book 8 is Always on My Mind. That's the story of Leah and Jack, who are childhood friends, high school sweethearts, and Leah owns the bakery, and Jack is a firefighter. Book 9 is Once in a Lifetime, and that is the story of Aubrey and Ben. Aubrey is a girl who also worked for the mayor, and then Ben is a guy who grew up in Lucky Harbor and was married to Hannah, and Hannah died in a car accident, and then he went off to be kind of an adrenaline junkie, working as a helicopter pilot for groups who need for him to go in and get people out or things like that, like Doctors Without Borders and groups like that. So he's been all over the world. Then we have book 10, which I think was my favorite. It's called It's in His Kiss, and that's the story of Becca and Sam. And Becca is a jingle writer who has run away and found kind of refuge in Lucky Harbor, and Sam is one of 3 guys that own a charter boat company. Book 11 is He's So Fine. This is the story of Olivia and Cole. Olivia is a child star who has changed her name and run away from her life after the show she was on was canceled. So she's now hiding out in Lucky Harbor as the owner of a vintage shop. And then Cole is the charter boat captain of the charter boat company. And book 12, One in a Million. This is the story of Callie and Tanner. Callie is the granddaughter of Lucille, who is the crazy woman that I talked about earlier. And she grew up in Lucky Harbor. She got left at the altar, and now she owns an online wedding planning business. And Tanner is the 3rd guy who owns the charter boat company, and he is the guy that takes you out to do scuba diving and that kind of thing. I need to own every one of those books in print because I will revisit them time and time again. And like I say, my favorites are as a tie between books 2, which is the oldest sister who owns the B&B and her guy, and book 10, which is Becca and Sam. So that is a whole lot of Jill Shalvis for 1 month. And yet I love this author. I really have fallen in love with these series that she writes. They're very formulaic, but she changes it up every time a little bit differently with a little different situation. And so for that reason, it makes it kind of, just fun to enjoy each little episode. So that's all the romance and a little tiny bit of contemporary for September. If you've read any of these books, especially any Jill Shalvis, I would love to know your thoughts. So leave me a comment and let's talk about it there. And that's it for now for me. I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.
When I'm gone, you're gonna miss me when I'm gone. You're gonna miss me by my walk. You're gonna miss me by my talk. Oh, you're gonna miss me when I'm gone.